d4 f5, black plays the Dutch defense, aiming for a solid pawn structure and counterattacking chances. c4 nf6, black develops their knight, preparing to control the center. nc3 d6, black continues development and prepares for a potential e5 pawn break. nf3 h6, black creates luft for their king to prevent back rank weaknesses. bf4 nc6, black develops the knight to c6, aiming to control central squares and prepare for queenside castling. g3 e6, black fianchettos the king's bishop, aiming for a solid pawn structure and bishop activation along the long diagonal. bg2 d5, black advances the d-pawn, aiming to challenge white's center and gain space. c5 n4, black centralizes the knight, aiming for control over key central squares and potential pawn exchanges. qc2 nxc3, black exchanges knights, simplifying the position and potentially opening lines for the pieces. qxc3 bd7, black completes queenside development, preparing to castle and supporting the c6 knight. oog5, black starts a kingside pawn storm, aiming to open lines against white's king. b3 f4, black sacrifices a pawn to open lines against white's king and create attacking chances. gxf4 black opens the g-file, potentially exposing white's king and aiming for an attack. bxf4 rg8, black doubles rooks on the g-file, preparing for a kingside attack. bg3 qe7, black prepares to bring the queen to the kingside, potentially supporting further pawn advances or coordinating an attack. kh1e5, black opens up the center, aiming to create tactical opportunities and gain initiative. dex5 h5, black advances the h-pawn, creating threats against white's king and gaining space on the kingside. e6 bg7, black sacrifices a pawn to open lines against white's king and create tactical opportunities. qd3 b6, black captures a pawn, maintaining material equality and opening lines for the bishop. e4 black castles queenside, completing development and connecting the rooks. exd5 rxd5, black captures a pawn, further opening lines against white's king and activating the rook. qc2 bf6, black improves the position of the bishop, aiming to increase pressure on the kingside. nd2 h4, black advances the h-pawn, aiming to create threats against white's king and open lines. bxd5 hxg3, black sacrifices the bishop to open lines against white's king and create attacking chances. b6 plus c6, black captures a pawn with check, further exposing white's king and gaining initiative. fxg3 qd5 plus, black checks with the queen, maintaining pressure on the white king and forcing concessions. kg1 bd4 plus, black checks with the bishop, aiming to penetrate white's position and win material. rf2 bxf2 plus, black sacrifices the bishop to maintain pressure on the white king and force further concessions. kxf2 qd4 plus, black checks with the queen, aiming to exploit white's exposed king position. ko2 re8 plus, black checks with the rook, continuing to harass white's king and exploit its vulnerability. kd1 qg1 plus, black checks with the queen, aiming to deliver a decisive blow and penetrate white's position. nf1 qxf1 plus, kd2 rd8 plus, black checks with the rook, continuing to exploit white's exposed king and maintain pressure. Kc3qf3+, black checks with the queen, aiming to exploit white's exposed king position and force concessions. Kc4 na5+, black delivers a knight fork, winning material and exploiting white's weak position. Kb5 qc6+, black checks with the queen, aiming to exploit white's exposed king position and force further concessions. Xa5 b6+, black sacrifices a pawn to open lines against white's king and create attacking chances. Kb4 a5+, black advances the passed pawn, further disrupting white's position and creating threats. Ka3 qf3+, black checks with the queen, maintaining pressure on the white king and forcing further concessions. B3 b5, black continues to advance the passed pawn, aiming for promotion and creating threats. Kb2 qf6+, black checks with the queen, aiming to exploit white's exposed king position and force further concessions. Qc3 rd2+, black checks with the rook, aiming to penetrate white's position and exploit its vulnerabilities. Kc1, white resigns, recognizing the inevitable loss of material or checkmate.